For this afternoon and tonight, a significant winter storm, including heavy snow with limited readings.
Hello, and welcome to the Snow Brains Podcast, where it's my job to interview the most intelligent people in the snow sports industry and pass their fascinating knowledge on to you, our listeners. I'm your host, Miles Clark. I'm a professional free skier, a professional mountain guide, a UC Berkeley molecular cell biology graduate, the founder and CEO of Snow Brains, and I've only ever been in one fight in my entire life. It was a street brawl in San Francisco. I don't think I landed a single punch, but I definitely got punched twice hard in the face and got fish hooked. The Snow Brains podcast is brought to you by Alta Ski Area. 8.5%? Nope, we ain't talking about beer. We're talking about the average density of Alta snow, the density that provides perfect powder flotation. My guest today is the legendary ski mountaineer, author, inventor, and big mountain scientist, Andrew McLean. In 2017, Powder Magazine voted Andrew as one of the 48 most influential skiers of all time. Andrew is one of the best ski mountaineers on the planet, having skied first descents on every continent and has been featured in a myriad of ski movies, including the big mountain skiing documentary, Steep. Andrew is the inventor of the Whippet self-arrest ski pole, among many other groundbreaking inventions in the mountaineering universe. Andrew has skied over 100 first descents all over the world. Andrew graduated from the very prestigious Rhode Island School of Design and went on to become a product designer for Black Diamond in Salt Lake City for 14 years. Andrew was even an avalanche forecaster for the Utah Avalanche Center for 1 year. Andrew wrote the most legendary, hilarious guidebook ever created called The Chuting Gallery, a guide to steep skiing in the Wasatch, that is simultaneously considered the Bible and Holy Grail of steep skiing in the Wasatch Mountains of Utah. Andrew is a gifted writer and has written articles for Powder Magazine, Backcountry Magazine, Skiing Magazine, and many other publications. Andrew is most likely the very first professional ski mountaineer on Earth. Andrew McLean lives in Park City, Utah, with his wife Polly, their 2 daughters, and 2 poorly behaved canines. Andrew McLean is so goddamn interesting, he has so much to teach us, and has so many hilarious stories that we had to break this interview into 2 parts. This is part 1 of Andrew McLean, the big mountain scientist. Hello, Andrew. Welcome to the show. How are you today, buddy?
I'm doing great. It's good to see you.
Yeah, you too, man. Really good to see you. We were just saying that, we're supposed to be seeing each other in Ushuaia, Argentina right now, and headed to Antarctica right now, which is, yeah, he's wiping tears away.
It hurts.
Kind of sad. It hurts that we're not doing that. That's it's my favorite ski trip. It's got to be one of your favorite ski trips, Andrew.
Yeah. If I had to cash in every ski trip for one trip, that would be it. It's just the combination of everything is phenomenal down there.
That's a bold statement, especially coming from you. I kind of want to start here by just saying, I've been researching you, Andrew, and there's so much to unpack about you. You're one of the most famous yet enigmatic big name skiers on earth. And I want to change that today. I want to expose you. I'm going to expose you to our audience. And right off the bat, I think the audience is feeling it, but you and I are friends. We've spent weeks together, in small sailboats in Svalbard, Norway ski guiding. We've spent time in boats in Antarctica ski guiding. And so this interview is going to be fun. It's going to be frank. And I'm really excited to have this venue so I can kind of dig in and ask you tougher questions than normal. So watch out. So are you the very first professional ski mountaineer? And if so, how the hell did you do that?
I was an early adapter in the U.S. I think depends on how you define ski mountaineer or professional ski mountaineer. When we started out, there was no such thing. And we'd be on a skin track and find a dropped power bar or something and be like, we're sponsored. So it was kind of a joke, to be sponsored because it was just backcountry skiing was nothing at the time. And, then it caught on and especially with the influence from the European gear coming in, the, Dynafits and just lighter, more reliable AT gear. Suddenly it just caught on in America. And because I was working at Black Diamond Equipment, it just took off. And, at some point it was like, well, you can have whatever gear you want, and then, we'll pay for your trips. And then at one point it was like, oh, and we're going to pay you on top of this. It's like, really?
Wow.
So I think as much as anything, it was just kind of the right place at the right time. I just kind of caught the wave as it was building.
Timing is everything. And we'll dive into that more in a little bit. How many ski movies have you been in, and which was your favorite?
Been in about 10 to 15 of them. Say my favorite was Steep, which was put out by Sony. And it was just a really cool, well-done documentary with a lot of interesting people in it. You know, Doug Coombs, Seth Morrison, Ingrid Backstrom.
Shane McConkey, yeah.
Shane McConkey, yeah. And I just thought they did a really good job with the filming and covering the whole thing and kind of telling the story of big mountain skiing. You know, a wide variety with its European roots and then how it kind of transferred into the U.S. and where it was going. You know, each person was kind of different. You know, Shane McConkey was doing backflips off cliffs, and I was doing more expedition skiing. So I thought it was interesting and well done. Then we had a really amazing avalanche that we got caught in.
And we are going to talk about that more here today. What's your main goal when you go skiing? What are you looking for out there?
Just on a regular day, you know, try to make the best of the day. It's kind of, as you get more and more into backcountry skiing, you're just like, all right, you know, it's kind of overcast and windy and it hasn't snowed for 3 weeks. You know, I'm going to go try to find powder. And I think that, you know, after you've done it for a while and you find powder, you're just like, oh yeah, you know, it's kind of like a little sleuthing mission to, you know, come up with a theory and then see if you can pull it off. You know, going out with a good group of friends, that makes a big difference too.
You're a very famous professional skier, and I get the feeling that you'd be doing the exact same thing without the fanfare. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, for sure. I kind of started to realize that on some of the trips where I've been a guide, been on some amazing mega yachts, and you meet people that are, you know, just wealthy beyond your wildest imagination. And it was like, you know, if I had all this money, I think I'd be doing the same thing.
I'd still just go skiing.
Go skiing. I'd be on, you know, going to cool trips and going skiing and meeting people and traveling around. So, yeah, I think I would. I might have a few more pairs of skis and a fancier car, but yeah, basically the same thing.
What's your biggest accomplishment in ski mountaineering?
I'd have to say the biggest single one would probably be skiing the Alaska family, which is Foraker, Hunter, and Denali. You know, that was a multi-year quest, and they were all kind of big peaks.
14 years, right?
Something like that, yeah. And it never, you know, we started out just skiing Denali, and that was great by itself. And then I kind of got interested in skiing, or then I skied Hunter with Lauren Glick and Armand and Weedy. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, you know, I've done 2 out of the 3 of the family, and looked over and it's like, oh, I should give Foraker a try. So that took 2 tries to get it. And we just got it. It was a 2-week trip and we skied it on the last day.
Wow.
That we possibly could. So I'd say that was probably the biggest single one, you know, longest time, most involved.
We might dip into that a little bit more later as we talk about your ski expeditions. What would you do if you couldn't ski?
I think I'd just be a designer. I've always been, even before I started skiing, I just liked building stuff and, you know, making stuff and putting things together. As a kid, I was always making models and painting stuff and burning airplanes and building kites and stuff. So I'd build stuff and be a designer.
And you invented some incredible things like the Whippet, the ice axe ski pole, and we're definitely going to talk about that later. What scares you the most in the mountains?
Avalanches, for sure. Specifically, you know, maybe the head of a steep couloir that has a lot of wind loading in it. I've just seen a lot of them, you know, fail. We had a mutual friend, Kip and Allison, you know, they're caught in an avalanche there. I was involved in early avalanche fatality. So, you know, hiking up the couloir and right at the head of it, when you get a lot of wind loading coming in, I think that's one of the scarier scenarios. I mean, there are ways to kind of diffuse it, roping in, ski cutting it, things like that. But when I see things like that, especially when I see like TGR movies with people, you know, hucking their meat and landing on these big fat wind-loaded pillows, it's just like, no!
Oh gosh.
So yeah, that's probably the biggest single item.
And that was so sad. Kip and Allison on Split Mountain in California. I believe that was 2011. That was devastating. I was up at Points North Heli when that happened, where Kip works. I saw him as he was leaving the Cordoba airport, and that was the last time I saw him. And then obviously that trip just had a big shadow over it.
Yeah, he was a big part of Points North.
Yes, absolutely. What do you love most about the mountains?
Just being out in them. A lot of times it's hard to get motivated. You're tired, or conditions aren't perfect, and it's like, and then you go out, and as soon as I go out, it's just like, oh yeah, this is great. It's just things. There's kind of a magic to the mountains. You end up just having adventures and meeting people, and come back, and it's a pretty rare day that I would ever be kind of disappointed that I went out. It's always good to be out in the mountains.
I can agree with you on that. What's the funniest accident you've had in the mountains?
We were down in Patagonia doing the southern Patagonia ice cap around the backside, and we had dug a big outhouse. We had a lot of snow, and I went to dig out the outhouse, and the whole thing collapsed, and I fell into it. And we were nowhere from running water, so I had to use a pancake scraper, a spatula, basically scrape my pants off. It was totally disgusting.
Human feces. Oh, that's
yes.
That is. It's wasn't funny at the time. Funny now.
It was pretty funny at the time.
Okay,
good. Especially if you were my other two friends that were there. But
oh my gosh.
But yeah, there've been. I don't know. Maybe not so much skiing, but I mean, just in the travel, on the ice axe trip. I mean, there's just a lot of great memories that kind of come with the skiing lifestyle and the people.
The culture, all that stuff. What's the scariest accident you've had in the mountains?
Scariest one, I don't know, maybe the second time I skied the Mowich Face was pretty terrifying. The first time was just this perfect corn snow, and we just were able to link turns all the way down at Mount Rainier. So I went back with a friend, Mark Holbrook, and just told him how great it was and how awesome it was going to be, and it was just a sheet of ice. So it's really big, 5,000 plus feet, 50 degrees, just unrelenting. And I think we made maybe one turn down the whole thing, just side slipped the whole thing. It was terrifying.
Sounds like you have a wet avalanche at one point?
It was just, we tried that one twice as well. The first time we basically got avalanched off it just with, it's a really tight choke. It was just a fire hose of spindrift coming down. So the second time, it was just two of us, so it was a lot tighter. So we weren't really getting hit with avalanche debris, but it's just a really unrelenting technical route, rappelling, setting anchors, natural anchors, bollards, pitons, and just right off the bat, you're in super steep terrain, and it just gets more and more committing from there on.
Sounds terrifying.
Gosh. We could tell jokes.
Oh yeah, that might help me keep me from crying. And on that note, this is not the funnest thing to talk about, but I think it's important for our audience because we've all lost friends in the mountains. How many friends have you lost in the mountains, Andrew?
Let's see. Of the people that I've been with, 4. But beyond that, like Kip and Allison and people that were acquaintances that I wasn't involved with their accident. I mean, it must be 20 over the years. Seems like there hasn't been anything for the last couple of years. That's been a good sign.
Knock on wood. Have you ever been hurt while skiing?
I cracked a rib once. That's about it.
That doesn't count. How many avalanches have you been in?
I've been buried once, and I, triggered endless avalanches, where they broke right at your feet and maybe went a little ways and then stopped. Mm-hmm. I've been caught and carried maybe 5 to 10 times.
Not bad. And it's just impressive too that you've essentially never been hurt. You've been able to avoid avalanches, and then the lines that you ski. It's phenomenal. And there was one story about you taking a 500-foot fall somewhere. Is that BS or is that real?
Yeah, that was.
Where was that?
That was up at Alta. It was in the Alta ski area in the resort.
Well, that's not what I imagined that happening to you.
I know. Yeah, and it was kind of a weird circumstance. I went up, and they had just opened the gate for Main Baldy, and I went up there, and I was waiting for a friend, and there was a big delay, so the whole crowd got ahead of me and went up, and I was like, now I don't want to ski Main Baldy with 50 other people. So I started down one that was earlier before that called Perlas, there's like Main Baldy, and then there's Dogleg, and then way over to the side is Perlas. And it had a little drop to it that was maybe just 3 feet, a little cornice. And I wadded up a snowball and threw it on it, and it just kind of plopped. And I was like, all right, this is going to be just soft powder. And so when the friend caught up to me, it was like, all right, let's go, because it'd been a while of waiting. And I jumped and landed on a little wind lip, and I thought it was just going to poof, but except the wind lip was actually really hard. And I tipped backwards, and I just started to fall backwards. And more than anything, I was just annoyed. I was like, damn it. It just blew this line that I just took off like a rocket, because it was so steep and it was actually pretty hard underneath. And I just started, spinning, and I hit once, and it kicked me way up in the air. And I was seeing like cliffs and rocks and sky and snow. And I was like, this is it. This is, I'm going to break my back. I'm going to die. I'm going to hook up on a tree, because there were trees there. And, then I hit again, but it was so steep that it didn't really hurt. It just boomed me back up in the air. And I fell from the ridge line all the way down to where that ballroom traverse is. Mm-hmm. And I hit 3 times and just totally accidentally landed on my feet standing.
Whoa. It's just, but I mean, it's hard to even understand.
It just totally stopped. And it was springtime, and there were a whole bunch of people up at the top of Germania, and I got a big round of applause.
I'm sure you
but
did.
I was still kind of like, I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I lived through that. This, a lone ski patroller came out, because there's a ski patrol shack up there, and he just skis out, and we were only like 5 feet apart, because he was on the traverse and I was right above it. And he's like, are you okay? And I was like, yep. He's like, you got really lucky. I was like, yep. But, in a way, it was really educational, because it kind of taught me, like, whenever that happens, whenever you start to fall on really steep terrain, you've got to get it under control, like right there.
Quick.
And that's where kind of whippets help out, because, you're able to dig in and stop, or at least orient your feet underneath you. But yeah, you don't have any time on really steep terrain. The whole idea of like setting up a self-arrest and getting out your axe. And I think that's just a total fallacy. It's just, you're moving too fast.
That incredible story. Thanks for sharing that. You've been on ski expeditions in every continent and had first descents on every continent. Which was your favorite ski expedition?
I think maybe Baffin Island in 2002, where we did a kiting expedition with Brad Barlich. It was just the 2 of us, and there was no information on it. We just based the whole trip on photos, and there were polar bears, and we built our own kites, these big traction kites. And we just didn't know, what we were going to find. We didn't know if the kites were going to work. We didn't know if we were going to get eaten by polar bears. We didn't know how cold it was going to be. We didn't know if the ice was going to break up and drift out. And it just turned out to go the other way. Everything just lined up perfectly. The kites were amazing, and we skied, I think, 19 new couloirs up there, and they were all just, total 5-star sweethearts. Really, really, really good. So I think that one stands out.
Hearing about that trip, I've heard about it a few times. It almost pisses me off, because I'm never going to go there. I'm never going to do that. I don't know how to even execute something like that. It's just that trip is incredible. I want to see more media from that. So where have you been on a ski expedition that you would not go back to?
Iceland.
Oh, really? Tell us why.
I went there on a trip. That's where the steep avalanche was filmed.
Okay.
Steep. And it was right at the zenith of their economy. It was before the whole world economy exploded. And it was just unbelievably expensive. And we hadn't done much research on it. We're just like, Iceland is going to be a cool little thing. And I remember getting there to Reykjavik, and we got in all-night flight. First thing in the morning, John Greiber buys a round of coffee and muffins, and he comes back and he's like, I'm not doing that again. It was $120.
Whoa.
And the trip kind of went downhill from there. I mean, the skiing was great and the people were great and we had a good time, but I'm still kind of emotionally and financially recovering from that one. We didn't put much research into it. We looked at these really old maps from World War II, and just under this idea that, it's going to be this remote Greenland type place. And we get there and we found this area and we're like, yeah, we're going to, ski here. This looks like great terrain. And when we got there, in the intervening years between World War II and 2000 or whenever it was, there's an entire town with a ski village and chairlifts built there.
Oh, that's not as remote as you were looking for.
No, so we ended up just free forming the whole time, and the trip was very disjointed, but it's still a fun trip. But I'm still a little scarred about going back there.
Deep scars right there. The New Yorker called you a mountain scientist after seeing how you kind of tinker and build things in your house, including those kites you were talking about for Baffin Island. Do you think that's an accurate portrayal, mountain scientist?
I think scientist might be given a little too much credit. I like maybe mountain tinkerer.
I like that. I like
yeah,
that.
I'm not really, I don't do it really in a scientific method, but I just like building stuff. So yeah, I do, a lot of tinkering, a lot of building, and thinking about stuff.
What have you built? What's a fun list of things you've built and designed to make life better in the mountains?
I did a bunch of carabiners. The first wire gate carabiner, if you're familiar with those, like the little paper clip.
Mm-hmm.
That was the hot wire. And then I did the live wire. I did the peckers, the talon, knee pads, the camelots. You're familiar with those camming devices that you kind of squeeze and they open and shut.
And was that something that hadn't existed before, the cams?
They had existed, but I did a redesign on them that came up with a single stem and lightened them up and just kind of more streamlined them. So that was a big project, about a year and a half.
Wow.
Did some smaller things like ski leashes, the asymmetrical backcountry basket, some Raven crampons, the Venom ice tool. A lot of metal spiky things.
That's a lot. And of course the Whippet, which again, we're gonna get to. And then just let's do this quick, because I almost don't believe this. Your resume says that you enjoy mountain unicycling. Do you really mountain unicycle? What the hell is that?
It's my pickup line for Tinder. No, it's yeah, I do. I learned how to ride I learned how to ride a unicycle when I was a kid. And then I gave it up for a long time. And then I went to a Banff Milton Film Festival, and they had Chris Holm video, and he kind of introduced mountain unicycling. So, it's the idea of taking a unicycle and basically going off trail, doing a mountain bike trail with it. So I got one and ride it. It's fun. It's great around Park City. It's really good with dogs because you go a lot slower. With a mountain bike, you can just dust them. But with a unicycle, you're going 8 miles an hour up, 8 miles on the flats, and 8 miles an hour on the steeps. And I'm only good for an hour or so. It's a pretty good workout, and it's really good for skiing. You have to have a really quiet upper body. You can't be moving around. So I think there's a lot of crossover, and you can do the whole thing in an hour. You're pretty satisfied with a good workout.
Just one more thing that you're better than me at. Great.
That's a pretty low bar there, Miles.
Well, just the balance involved, man. That's got to go. Like you said, it's got to really be.
I've seen your backflips.
The occasional. So you were on the Colbert Report with Stephen Colbert in 2008. Promoting the movie Steep, the ski movie you've spoke of here today. The Colbert Report is one of the most popular comedy news shows of all time. It averaged 1.5 million viewers per show and was one of my favorite shows. And so I'd like to play a quick clip from the Colbert Report right now for our audience of Stephen Colbert interviewing you and asking you about the avalanche that you are in the movie Steep.
Now, when that happens to you, do you say, hell yeah, let's do some more?
I do,
or do you say, really?
Well, I'm a slow learner, so yeah, I was totally into it. I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, it was great to be alive afterwards, but I keep coming back. It's part of ski mountaineering.
After hearing that clip today, do you still feel that way about that avalanche in that clip?
Yeah. I think if you could teach avalanche classes, if I taught avalanche classes, and you could guarantee that it would be safe, the first thing I'd have everybody do is go for a big ride in an avalanche, just so that they kind of understood, the power of it. And, there'd have to be some pop out and you'd be safe. But I think, the experience of it was, I didn't think I was going to pull it off. I thought I was going to be washed backwards off a cliff. But, having survived it and lived through it, it's like, yeah, that was pretty damn exciting.
It's a good adrenal gland massage, if you will.
Yes.
So, and I'm just so curious because I love that show so much. And so seeing you on it just blew my mind. What was it like being on the Colbert Report?
Oh, it was cool. Yeah, I was a big fan of his beforehand, and it was super fast. Like,
Yes.
yeah, you just go in and, he's like boom, 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 boom. And he's, he has a lot of makeup on him. Like when you see him really close for the cameras, and it was almost like talking to this mannequin, because he was so animated and he just had so much kind of stage makeup on, and he was just so quick, like everything was moving around. I was just kind of hanging on for the ride, like, wow, this is cool. And then it was like, thank you, goodbye. Like, yeah, cool.
And you did great, by the way. And I love how you actually joked with him and made him believe for a second that skiers wear parachutes. And then you poked fun at the French. We're better than the French. That's why we made this movie. And he was totally into that.
Oh, I knew he was a French teaser. I love the French, but you got to tease him a little bit.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And did you guys rehearse at all for the interview? No, you just jump in there.
Yeah, they have all these green rooms set up, and you're just sitting there in the green room, and they've got all this food, and he came in, just like door flies open. He came in like 10 minutes beforehand, introduced himself, and said how it's going to go, and you're just like, okay. And then they just come get you, and you walk out, and there's a lot of quick editing going on that he's really good at. Like he says stuff like stop point, and they'll stop something and they'll cut to a different this and that.
Interesting.
So, it was broken up a little bit more than it looked like, but it was really cool to see. The audience helped out a lot because there was a live audience. So
pumps you up.
Pretty fun to talk to him. And then Jeb Corliss, the base jumper that wears all black, was on the same show. So that was kind of cool. I got to meet Jeb, and kind of felt like it was good. Extreme sport show. So it was fun.
Agreed. You did great. Jeb Corliss is awesome. What an experience. You were also on ABC's Good Morning America promoting the movie Steep. Did those people have any idea how to talk to you at all?
No.
Yeah.
No, it was just totally, skiing was completely foreign. They might have skied Mount Hunter a few times, but they just had no idea, like, the whole backcountry, you take a helicopter, and it's like, yeah, sure. So, it was a much different scenario. I mean, I remember the Colbert one very clearly. I don't remember much about the Good Morning America, except with Ingrid. She was a good sport. I had a great time traveling with her.
So let's jump into your life timeline, because I think this is going to really bring you to life with our listeners. I just think it's fascinating, and I really feel that each stage of your life was insanely impressive, and each stage presented challenges that led to excellence in the next stage, which resulted in you in being one of the most badass ski mountaineers on earth. And you're still doing that, and you still have a long way to go. So we'll just start off with your childhood. What was your childhood like, and where did you live and ski?
We moved around quite a bit. My dad was an ophthalmologist, eyeball doctor. And I first learned how to ski. My mom was the skier in the family. She was a ski instructor at Alta. So first turns were at Alta. And then we moved to Vermont, Florida, Haiti, Connecticut, skiing around there. So I skied teeny little mountains, Haystack, Madonna Mountain, Mohawk Mountain, places like that on the East Coast. And then at a pretty young age, we moved to Seattle. And that's kind of where I grew up. And I grew up skiing at Alpental. I think that's where I got my taste of the steeps. The whole upper chair there is a really steep line. Every run is double black diamonds. I was on the racing team, so I had kind of a background in racing and a lot of good racing buddies. And that was where I got my start skiing.
That worked out great for you, because I think Alpental is one of the most awesome, badass little mountains in the Northwest for sure. And did you go to a high school ski academy? Is that what I read?
After I graduated from high school, I went to the Mission Ridge Ski Racing Academy for a year, and that was over in Wenatchee.
And that's in Oregon or Washington?
Washington.
Washington.
Over on the east side.
So you graduated from high school. You went to the academy for how long? And you did some coaching there? You got coach of the year? What is this?
No, I did 1 year of racing. And I really loved racing, but I was never that good at it. I mean, in the grand scheme of things. And then after that, went to college, and then I started coaching. So I went back to Alpental. I still had a lot of friends there, and I was a coach for the Alpental ski team.
Okay, great. Well, that moves us right into, so kind of phase two, as I have your phases written down here, is university. So after you graduated high school in 1981, you went to the Rhode Island School of Design, which is one of the best universities in the nation. And what did you learn there?
I started out thinking I was going into architecture, but there's a subdivision of that called industrial design. And industrial design is like the design of products like furniture, chairs, anything you have, the ice axes, toys, any consumer products. And I like that a lot more than architecture. So I switched to that, and it teaches you form and function and how to make mechanical drawings and how to make things fit ergonomically with the human body. And so it was a 4-year program in industrial design.
Well, it sounds like it really served you well because you ended up inventing some impressive things. And let's get into some of the dirt. So what's this about you almost getting arrested for climbing on the museum walls or the roof, or what happened there?
It wasn't almost, it was full arrest.
Yeah. Oh, okay, good.
Come on, Miles. I want credit.
I know. Yeah, I mean, at this point, you might as well own it, right? I got my facts mixed up. So you got arrested for climbing on campus. And what happened here?
Yeah, it was a friend of mine, my roommate, is the guy that got me into rock climbing. And we just read books about it. And one of the techniques is chimneying, stemming up. And there was these two buildings that were close together, and they were on campus at the Rhode Island School of Design. And one night we decided, we're just going to chimney up this thing because it was like the perfect width. So we chimney all the way up, not really even thinking about what building was what. It was just like this perfect chimney. And at the top, you kind of had to lunge off to the side and grab onto the roof and climb over. And as soon as I did that, I jumped down on the roof, and there was like this click, hum. It's like, oh, that's kind of weird. It must be like air conditioning or just something happened. But it was a silent alarm. So we were hanging out on the top there, pretty psyched. I don't know how we thought we were going to get down. It was probably lucky we did get arrested. And all of a sudden, about 15 cop cars show up. Whoa. And it's only a 3-story building. And, they came in, and we were just sitting there, and they came up, and they were all pretty psyched, like, what are you doing here? And we had, beforehand, we'd read about climbing, how you need chalk. So I had ground up a bunch of, there was some wallboard, like a gypsum, sheetrock. And I ground up some sheetrock for chalk, and I didn't have a chalk bag, so I just put it in a baggie, like a little Ziploc baggie. So it was like a Ziploc baggie looking, with white powder in it. And, so they're searching us all down. They pull it out, and they're just like, check this out. So he opens it up, and this is, in the old days, he does the full finger dip, and he sticks it in there and tastes it.
He sticks it in his mouth.
Yeah.
Oh.
It was just like, it's chalk. So, that was luckily it was on campus. And so we went in, we talked, and we kind of got reprimanded, but we were just like, fully admitted to it. It was just a mistake, wrong building, great chimney, but wrong building.
Right. And might you have also gotten arrested dangling from a train trestle somewhere? Is that another?
That was
2 for 2.
I think that was maybe a year later, and there was a big train trestle that went over a bridge, and it was stuck at like a 45-degree angle over the water. And we were going to go climb Half Dome that summer. So to practice for Half Dome, we wanted to learn how to Jumar, how to climb up a rope using a special knot called a Jumar knot. And so my friend climbed up, and he rappelled down. Instead of only going like 20 feet, he went the full 150 feet of the rope. Whoa. And he's down before trying to figure out the knot, whether it worked or not. So he's down at the bottom of the rope, and he's swinging around, trying to get it to work. And I'm looking over, and the whole kind of freeway is stopped. And I'm like, God, that's, it must be traffic jam or something. Just watching Paul, and nothing's happening. And all of a sudden the fire trucks start coming. It's like, oh, there's a fire. And all of a sudden they take the exit right near me. And I'm like, hey, I wonder, it must be around here. And then they turn into the neighborhood that we're in. And it was like, oh no, it's right. And then I see him turn into the road that leads to us. And they showed up with, fire engines and police cars, and they sent out, they all stayed back, all the sirens are off, and they sent out one guy that comes out, and he was like the suicide prevention negotiator.
Oh,
And he
wow.
calls up and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing up there?" It's like, "Oh, just climbing." He's like, "Well, why don't you come on down?" It's like, "Great, okay." So I climbed down, and he's a super nice guy. He's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, we're just practicing climbing." And he just starts to laugh. He's like, oh my God. He's like, "You
You
guys."
thought you guys were going to kill yourselves.
Yeah, but I guess they thought that he was committing suicide, like a failed suicide where he was dangling at the end of the rope because he was kind of kicking and squirming around. So
Oh my God.
he climbed back up, and then we both got hauled off, and then they just left us. Like, it was out in Lincoln Woods, which is like an hour away. Around 2 a.m, they let us go because nobody could claim ownership of the bridge. Nobody knew who owned it, so they couldn't do trespassing or anything. So they just let us go, and we had to find a ride home.
I love it. You got away with one, and you definitely tested the social services in your area during
Yeah.
college. Well done. Well done, sir. Well, I think the third phase of your life is the Talon. So after graduating from the Rhode Island School of Design in 1985, you founded a company called Peregrine Mountain Products and created only one product, the Talon.
Yes, it's
I
a
love
good
that.
product.
This huge
Peregrine Mountain
company.
product.
Yeah, we could have it. Literally, yeah, you're right. It should have just been Peregrine Mountain Product. And so what was the Talon, and where did it lead you?
Talon was a 3-point rock climbing hook. So a lot of hooks just are like a fish hook. And if you're doing direct aid, like you're climbing up El Cap and you're not free climbing like, Alex Honnold, you're using cams and pitons and nuts. With a hook, you hook onto a little flake and you pull yourself up, and hook another thing, pull yourself up, maybe put a piton in, pull yourself up. So the original hooks just had one point, and they were kind of wobbly. Like when you lean onto them, they teeter. So this was like a tripod. So it had 3 different size points to it, and you could you could swing onto it. You could switch around the points, things like that. I designed that and started building it, and then started selling it. And the first people that bought it was Black Diamond Equipment, and they ended up buying the entire design. In the process of selling the design, I met John Burkaw, and he was like, "Oh, you're a designer." Black Diamond just started. It had grown out of Chouinard Equipment. It was only, I think, 3 or 4 months old at the time. But I knew about it through Chouinard Equipment.
And Chouinard Equipment is Yvon Chouinard, who started Patagonia as well. Continue.
Right. Yeah. That was the original nexus of Patagonia, was the rock climbing division. So he was like, "Well, we need an industrial designer. Are you interested?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So packed up my 69 Camaro and drove down to Ventura. And I was down in Ventura for about it was 9 months. And then Black Diamond as a whole moved to Park City. That's how I ended up back in Utah.
Fantastic, because that rolls us right into phase 4 of your life, which I have listed as Black Diamond. So you worked at Black Diamond in Salt Lake City for 14 years, I believe, as a designer. Yeah, 1991 to 2005, at least on your LinkedIn. Tell me about your experience there and about what you invented while working there.
It was really fun to, the company was really small at the time. I think at its lowest, it was maybe 40 people or something. I think nowadays it's probably pushing, I don't know, a couple hundred, easily a couple hundred. And, it was growing, and there was just full of really avid climbers and skiers and outdoor people. And, everybody was so busy that it was just like, as a designer, you're just like, what do you want to work on? And it's like, "Oh, carabiners. Okay, good, great. Just, work on them for a while." So, there was a lot of autonomy. You could, design stuff and find a climber that was really into, big wall climbing or sport climbing or whatever, and, develop a product that was very specific to that activity. And I'd usually have like one major project per year, but then I'd have a few side projects. Like I'd work on carabiner or camelots, and then off to the side, I'd do something like the pecker or Whippet or something like that.
And what are you most proud of building there? What affected your life the most?
I'd say probably the simplest would be the wire gate carabiner. carabiners are super simple. There's the body, which is the bent metal part that you hold on to, and then there's a gate. And the gate, the traditional gates have their bent metal, they've got a spring, they've got a plunger, 2 rivets. So the wire gate was just replaced all of that with just a single wire loop. It was kind of, the design had been around before. It was used quite a bit in sailing. But Black Diamond with Johnny Woodward, we ended up refining it so it was nice and smooth and even, and it made a big difference for climbing because it was much more simple. 1 part instead of 6 parts for the gate. It made it a lot lighter, and it worked better in a lot of situations. It didn't jam up with ice. It didn't have any whiplash to the gate. And originally we thought that it was just so odd and different that when we sat around and talked about sales projections, they're like, I'll sell 4,000, I'll sell 5,000, I'll sell 800 type of thing. And I think within maybe 1 or 2 years, it was the number 1 selling carabiner. And a lot of that just had to do with climbers adopting it. They take it out, they go climbing with it, and go back and replace their whole rack with them. So that was pretty satisfying.
Wow, that is something to be proud of. That's amazing. And then I thought you were going to say the Whippet, the self-arrest ski pole, because I've read that.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite.
That's your personal favorite, because I've read that that's the only American invented piece of mountaineering equipment ever.
I don't know about that.
Well, let's go with it because I like exaggeration.
Okay. We could do it.
So how did you come up with that idea?
There were some other self-arrest grips. There used to be this thing called an alpenstock. So, when people walk around in the mountains, they'd have like a 6-foot long pole, and they would put a little hook on the end, and they'd use it for kind of, hooking sheep or walking around or whatever. And then there were ice axes that were really long, so you could use them kind of as a staff. And then there were some self-arrest poles from Europe that had little plastic prongs to them. So, they were more for looks. They didn't really work all that well. You take them out, and if you were booting up a couloir and climbing, you could, they'd bend and break, and they just didn't function that well. So I just wanted to design something that was a hybrid, like ice axe and ski pole. And that started out pretty much as a side project, and I just made a bunch of different prototypes and then introduced it at one of the sales meetings, and it kind of caught on, and they decided to fold it into the product line, and started out just as a small little side project. But it's cool to see that it's lived on through 25 plus years, maybe 30 years. Wow. It's been a long time it's been around, so saved a lot of lives.
I believe that, man, and I really think it's a standard piece of ski mountaineering equipment now. I don't know how the sales were, but when I go out, when I have clients, it's something that if people don't have it, they're talking about it. And if it ever gets steep, they're wishing they have it. And I actually don't have one, so I need to get one.
Oh, nice.
I know. I didn't want to have to admit that here. So let's jump into stage 5 of your life. I'm calling Dawn Patrol. So you and your fellow Black Diamond coworkers, the legendary Alex Lowe and Mark Holbrook, would get up in the middle of the night and ski terrifying lines in the Wasatch Mountains of Utah before work. And you called your little clan the Dawn Patrol. I think that's right. And these Dawn Patrol sessions led to your famous book, The Chuting Gallery. Is that right?
Kind of. I mean, we did a lot of the Chuting Gallery as Dawn Patrols. Mm-hmm. The Chuting Gallery was kind of separate. That was, I'd skied 2 or 3 of the classic Wasatch lines, like a Toledo Chute and Superior and maybe Dogleg Chute or something. And this friend said, now you've skied all of the major Wasatch classics. And I was looking around, I was like, I don't know, there are a lot more. So I started to, ski some of them, and I just started keeping track and writing it down. And that's kind of what led to the Chuting Gallery. But the Dawn Patrol was really Alex Lowe. I mean, that guy was just the Energizer Bunny. And he'd always wake up, he'd be at the gym at 6 a.m. in the morning. And, during winter one time, I'd really wanted to ski the main Baldy Chute. And I was thinking, in terms of, you wait till the ski area opens, you ride up, you wait till the patrol opens it. And I told Alex something about it. I was like, I'd really love to ski that this year. And he's like, let's do it tomorrow morning before work. And I was like, no way. Alex was just an amazing, climber. It was like, and then my ego is just like, oh, well, if Alex is going to do it, I'm going to do it. So, but I mean, to me, it was just like so far away and so big. And, so we start out in the morning and, bus trail up there. And it was, I think in October, like really early season. And, got up to the top right at first light. It's a beautiful day. The sun's out. And we're just looking down Main Baldy Chute. And it's, 3 feet of virgin powder with, alpenglow morning light on it. And it was just like, wow, so we skied Baldy Chute. It was phenomenal. And, made it back and, look at the clock and it's like, God, it's only, 9 a.m. in the morning. And it kind of gave me an idea of like what was possible in the Wasatch, because the access is so easy here. It was like, oh, you can do that. You can go to Wolverine Cirque. You can, go up Superior. You can do things like that. And, it was really Alex that was the driving energizer bunny. I could do 1 or 2 dawn patrols a week. But I mean, Alex would just like, if conditions were good, he'd just like day after day after day after day after day. And, he did some huge ones like Bonkers and Lisa Falls, all before work. It'd be like, what time did you start? Oh, like 3. And he'd do them solo, oh, my headlamp went out. It was back when headlamps were really bad, so it slowed me down. I got lost and, I was wandering. It's just like, yeah, you could do stuff like, wake up, read a chapter of a book, mount a pair of skis and go do a dawn patrol and then show up at work at, 8:30.
Wow. And in that vein, I have to steal this quote from your book that I want to read to our listeners. This is from the foreword written by Alex Lowe in the Chuting Gallery. And he says, "The descents were sublime, but the most excruciatingly satisfying part of these outings was thundering the front door at Black Diamond, where Andrew and I both worked, just as the clock struck 8. Never mind that we were still wearing ski boots, sweat-drenched ski clothes, and would be unable to remain awake past 1 in the afternoon. We'd made it to work on time, having witnessed another sunrise, skied another chute, lived a little more life than the rest of humanity on those exalted mornings." That's what Alex wrote. And I think that just captures, whatever it was you guys were doing. How many years did you guys do this for? It sounds like you guys were meeting at 3 a.m. and then making a plan and getting out the door.
Yeah, I think Alex was around Black Diamond for 2 years. So we did 2 winters with him. But then the tradition lived on. Bill Belcourt, Brad Barlage, Mark Holbrook.
And did you guys coin that Dawn Patrol? It's now this ubiquitous trend doing Dawn Patrol. Were other people doing this?
No, there's nobody out there.
Yeah.
It's great. You'd meet a lot of people and, you'd be finished and they'd just be getting started. And they were just kind of like, how'd you get up? It was like, oh, we just hiked up. And what time do you start? The Dawn Patrol came from, I guess there was a movie by that. And it was kind of like an Army Navy movie. And there was, the special force, like the Dawn Patrol. And so they had something that was like, at dawn we ride. It was like their battle cry. So we were always just kind of saying that as, a joke. But it kind of became the Dawn Patrol.
Well, that's insane.
Reference to the movie.
If you guys coined the term Dawn Patrol, I mean, that's phenomenal because, it's used in skiing, surfing, so many of the sports, mountain climbing that we all do. So that's a really interesting backstory. And I love that you guys did it for years and it helped lead to some of the Chuting Gallery stuff. And just, man, it's hard to believe getting up that early and doing that before work. I love that. I love how he says, we could not stay awake at work past 1. That's fantastic.
Yeah, Black Diamond didn't really get their money's worth out
No.
of it.
Well, maybe in the end though, just because that's that part of the culture, right? And that you guys both became these, larger than life figures. Join us next week for part 2 of Andrew McLean, the Big Mountain Scientist, where we discuss the explosive growth of backcountry skiing and riding, accidents in the mountains, losing friends in the mountains, and Andrew's battle-hardened sense of humor.
The style of the writing came about because I just, never really expected it to be like a real book. It's just going to be like, it's just going to be like, here, Miles, here's this, here's this book you can read on the toilet and get a laugh out of, type of thing.
And now it's this legendary Bible of the Wasatch that you literally can't live in that area, be a backcountry skier, and not have this book. Join us, won't you? Thank you so much for listening to the Snowbrains podcast. If you liked this podcast, please share with your friends and family, and please subscribe. To find out more about Snowbrains, please visit us at snowbrains.com. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Snowbrains. This episode of the Snowbrains podcast was brought to you by Alta Ski Area. The editing of this episode was done by Robert Wilkinson. The music was created by Chad Crouch. I'm your host, producer, and creator, Miles Clark. Thank you for listening.